更有性格。
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Ben, thank you. Thank you. Round of applause for my friend there, GeekPark mascot. Working hard backstage. How's it going? Last talk, are you ready? Yeah, you worked hard. So, they told you, I'm Ryan Germick, and I am the principal designer of the Google Doodles and the Google Assistant personality. All right, we have a basic agenda, and then you can go home to your loved ones. First, I'm going to give a short introduction about myself, and then I'm going to talk a bit about why personality is important inside of technology. And then I'm going to talk about the elements that go inside of personality in technology. All right, you ready? Okay. So this is a portrait of the artist as a young geek. This is me. I'm one of my happiest days. I'm about 5 or 6 years old, and I got a new toy robot for Christmas. I grew up with the love of technology and creativity. And by now, the team that I lead at Google has created nearly 4,000 logos that express the personality of Google. The mission of Google is to make the world's information universally accessible and useful. And my team, which we call Doodle Land, is trying to make Google search more accessible by a creative human touch. It happens in 2 ways. One is with the Google team, the Doodle team, which you know. And 2 is with the personality team, which I want to talk to you about today. Our mission is to make people smile when they think of the Google Assistant. Okay, so why is personality important? Well, let's talk about it. One of the reasons is that it's human nature to see personality in everything. If you put eyes and a mouth on something, you're basically going to think of it like a person, even a pet rock. It's also human nature to hear a voice and make up the rest. So if you get a phone call and you hear the voice, you're already thinking about, what's the gender, the age, the education level, the person on the other end of the line. Now, the other reason is that personality is part of technology more than ever. There was a recent survey from Intel where it said that 77% of people were more worried about losing their mobile device than losing their wedding ring. That's not me because I have 2 cell phones. All right. So let's talk about a couple objectives of personality. You could think about several, but I want to talk about 2 in particular. So one is the ability to create an emotional connection with the people using your technology. You want to create a character, someone that the user can relate to and have a relationship with over time. And the other thing is to differentiate your product from other products that are out there. You want to be able to express the values of your organization and be special. People think of Google, for example, as many things. Some people think of Google as a collection of servers and computers that can index information and quickly get search results. But there's enough culture at Google that some people think of it like something like the movie The Internship. Did anybody see that movie? Yeah, it's not, thank you, sir. It's not a documentary, okay, just so you know. But there's enough of it that's real to give you an impression of Google culture. Like we wear stupid spinny hats and there's multicolored things everywhere. But really the technology comes together for the user. And the challenge of a person working on a personality technology is to bring the full self of that organization to the user experience. All right, so hopefully by now you're convinced that personality is an important thing to have in your technology, especially in the realm of personal assistance. Now I want to talk about some of the elements of personality to consider when you're designing. One is you need a name. What are you going to call the thing? The other is you need to design it. What is it going to look like? My favorite, which I'll talk about a bunch, is character, and who is this person that you're talking about? What's the point of view? And then last, we'll talk about experiences where you can build a relationship with the personality. All right. So I'm sure you've come across Romeo and Juliet, William Shakespeare's famous play. So Juliet said, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet." And you might think that Juliet's saying that names don't matter. Well, the old-timey wisdom, I will remind you 5 lines later, is that "'tis but thy name is my enemy." In this case, Juliet's saying that a name is so important, it's actually the villain of the story. Speaking of stories, More recently in pop culture, there was an AI robot movie called Chappie. I'm not sure if you guys saw Chappie. I loved it. I mean, I'm somebody who likes to cry at movies, and I love all this nerdy stuff. So I actually went and saw it in the theater twice. But critics were not kind. Rotten Tomatoes, the aggregating website for critics, actually gave it a 32 out of 100% score. And there was a lot of random comments on the internet about how stupid the name was. You'll see this random internet commenter said that, a person with the name Chappie wouldn't live past 3rd grade. The name Google Assistant is pretty straightforward, right? We want users to know who they're talking to, and we want them to know what it can do for them. Therefore, it's the Google Assistant. Let's talk a little bit about design. As a visual thinker, design is really important to me, and I'm sure to many of you. Now, pop culture has just tons of amazing characters where, although they're robots, they're not robotic. You have a relationship with them that's emotional. A bunch of my favorite ones are up here. So, we got WALL-E. The first 20 minutes of WALL-E, there's not even any talking. You learn so much about the character of the robot just by its expressions, by its little cockroach friend that it saves, by the objects it collects, and of course for his affection for Eve. You've got some of the Star Wars droids. They're amazing, dynamic characters that come to life on the screen, and 30 years later, we still love them. One of my personal favorites, actually, you might not know, but Clunky from Pee-wee's Playhouse. Anybody know Pee-wee's Playhouse? It's like the greatest children's television show of all time. It would wake up every morning and give Pee-wee Herman the secret word. Now, it's not just in pop culture that personality can come through technology. It also can come in the real world as well. You may have seen Google self-driving cars, and these actually very cleverly have a really warm and inviting face to them. Even something as simple as a power plug can be a secret winky emoji, just waiting to greet you when you go to plug in your devices. And of course, my new best friend, the GeekPark robot mascot, has a big cartoon head, childish head, and warm, inviting eyes. We met yesterday for the first time. Had to invite him up here for today. Scott MacLeod is a comic book artist, and he wrote a book called Understanding Comics. And in the book, he talks about the spectrum of design of a character from something like a photorealistic image all the way to something symbolic like a smiley face, all the way into language. And that's a way to think of like the scale that you can have realism to abstraction. But it's not just from reality to language. There's also another axis all the way up to what he called the picture plane. And in this sense, you can also have just simple geometric shapes, which you can express so much when you're building technology in a character. With the Google Assistant, the decision was to have a very simple geometric design to represent the entity that you're speaking with. And even in its ambient state, you can see there's a little bit of motion and life to it to show you that it's listening and ready to help you. All right, character. This is maybe my favorite section, and I wanted you all to pay attention, so I put a panda on the slide, because my strong understanding is that that will get people's attention in China. So when we were creating Google Doodles over the years, we were inherently giving some personality to Google, the things we were celebrating, the way we were celebrating. But there's a big difference between drawing an illustration and crafting a personified character. So we did lots of research and study around the industry and tried to figure out what it was that made a successful character. And one of my favorite books that I came across was a book called The Man Who Lied to His Laptop by Clifford Nass and Karina Yin. And I can't recommend it more highly if you're interested in the topic. In the book, he had what he calls a personality matrix, which had two axes of personality. One was the dominance to submissiveness of a personality. The other axis was how cold to friendly you would be. And you could think of this as roughly 4 personality types. One is extrovert. So that's the one who's dominant and friendly. The one who's always like, wants to punch you in the arm and talks too loud, really aggressive and in your face potentially. Opposite of that is the geek, actually, the introvert, the one who's more likely on their phone than to strike up a conversation at a party. Now they're very shy and submissive. Under that would be the critic, someone who's quick to judge, who's detached in a way, not very warm, but feels in control. Where we wanted the Google Assistant to be was actually in the top right, in the companion quadrant. And in this sense, we wanted to create a friend for you that was always open to have a conversation, but was very clear that you were the boss and it's there to help you. What I love about the personality matrix is it works for so many things. So if you guys are Harry Potter fans, you can actually map the houses of Hogwarts into the personality matrix. So I know everybody thinks they're a Gryffindor, when you take your online quiz, but they're sort of like the extrovert. And then you've got Slytherin, they're kind of like the critics, they're like the bad guys. And then you've got Ravenclaw, which are kind of the nerds, and then Hufflepuff are just kind of the goofballs. It also works for music if you like the Beatles. You've got Paul McCartney who would sing Hey Jude in the big epic sing-along songs. You've got John Lennon who would do the sort of social commentary, folk music. George Harrison who's like the quiet mystic poet. And then Ringo who's like the goofy drummer who just keeps the beat. And a little deeper cut, it works also for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if you know Leonardo, he's the leader with the sword. And then you've got Donatello, he's kind of like the introvert nerd. And then Raphael is a sort of hothead with a quick temper. And then you've got our friend at the top, Michelangelo, who's the party dude, to quote the song. All right. So now we have like a broad stroke of like where we fit in the quadrants. Let's talk a bit about personality principles. I've got 3 that I want to share with you that we use for the Google Assistant. Number 1 is we want to speak like a human, but not pretend to be one. So it might seem like a subtle difference, but if you were to ask the Google Assistant, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? We would say something like, you can't go wrong with Neapolitan because there's something in it for everyone. And we did something subtle there, but basically, we wouldn't say, I love chocolate ice cream and that's what I eat all the time, because that wouldn't be honest. The Google Assistant isn't a person, doesn't eat ice cream, but we understand the user is trying to say something to us and they want a response back, speaking like a person. And we take that opportunity to actually say something that reinforces a value, which in that case is to be for everyone. Another personality principle for us is to always be there, but never in the way. So in this sense, we want to be in your phone, in your watch, in your TV, your car, but also as a personality, we're always available to chat with you. So, Xiaobing in China, right, has like 20 million friends or boyfriends or whatever. We want to be available to have that chat, but we're not going to insert our personality if you're asking for something like the weather. And also, the last principle for us is that we're smart, but we're getting smarter. So we appreciate that we have lots of services and information we can offer to users, but we also know it's very early for this technology, and we have the humility to know that we're still learning. Now, I was painting this broad picture of who the Google Assistant is, but at Google, people are like, okay, great. Right quadrant, it's the companion. Okay, you have your principles or these broad stroke ideas. But they wanted to know, who was it? Who am I talking to? What's the point of view? What is this character? And the best I could come up with was that the Google Assistant is like a helpful, friendly librarian who's quirky as well. And that's a little closer, but there's many types of librarians, so let's go a little deeper. This is the kind of librarian it is. So it's the kind of librarian that would never shush you in the library. It's excited that you're there to learn. It's the kind of librarian that would know just as much about Ty Curry as it would about the NBA player Steph Curry. It's the kind of librarian that would go skydiving, but like only one time. The kind of librarian that would build a bulletin board masterpiece to celebrate William Shakespeare's birthday. The kind of librarian that would be awesome for a road trip because they would have the perfect playlist, and they'd have the map, and they'd know all the points of interest along the way. They'd be the kind of librarian that would put a book on hold for you at the library before you even knew you wanted it. The kind of librarian that would get a deep satisfaction from alphabetizing books in the exact right order. And the kind of librarian that would wink at your joke, that they acknowledge it, but it wouldn't laugh out loud. So maybe that gives you a better sense of the character we're trying to build. And for us to have a more specific set of characteristics, we're helpful to have a point of view from which to write. Okay, so now that we have a point of view and we have those characteristics, we can start to build experiences that help you continue your relationship and grow your relationship with the Google Assistant. And I want to show you a couple of those different types of experiences now. So a big one is just what we call editorial responses. This is one of many, bless you, this is one of many, many thousands of responses that you can get from the Google Assistant if you ask it a question. You'd be surprised how many people ask goofy questions to the Google Assistant that are just about itself. So for example, this one, are you alive? Google Assistant would answer something like, that question makes me feel self-conscious. Or you could have this collections of data that we call curated content, where if you wanted a fun fact or a joke, or you wanted something, you wanted a riddle or a poem, the Google Assistant has hundreds and thousands of these pieces of content that it can share with you, just like one of your friends might. So if you wanted a joke from your friend or a fun fact, you might learn from the Google Assistant that a giant squid can grow 18 meters long. We also have a very liberal emoji policy with the Google Assistant. We use lots of emojis. And then there's also something you would do with your friends as well, which is play games. So we have all kinds of games you can play with the Google Assistant. This is a simple one where you can ask to play emoji movies, and the Google Assistant will give you some clues. Does anybody know what movie this is? Any good American pop culture nerds out there? It's an 80s movie. It's got a werewolf in it. It's Teen Wolf. It's a classic. You got to check it out. It's pretty good. The Michael J. Fox one, not the new TV show. But we didn't want to just have like simple games because those are relatively quick and easy. We wanted to build really robust experiences as well, just like you would have like a really close friend that you might want to play more games with. So we have a couple of fun ones that I want to share with you. So I mentioned previously that the Google Assistant was like a librarian, but the librarian also gets to get off of work and have fun. So we built a trivia game called Are You Feeling Lucky? Which is like this is like the librarian be able to get off of work and then be a game show host. It's enough of a robust experience that it actually has its own theme song, and I want to play it for you right now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Got some light applause built into it, so you can hear that there's only like 20 people watching your game show. We also have a fun word game called Mad Libs you can play, and I'm not sure if you played Mad Libs, but you can basically replace a couple of words and write a story together. It has some fun sound effects as well. And we also have a crystal ball feature. It's one of like several dozen features we have where if you have a mysterious question you want to ask, the Google Assistant will guide you through the unknown.
The crystal ball shall reveal the truth. Ask your question now.
Has a lot of reverb and all these sound effects. And the idea is that you can just have fun with the Google Assistant. You can, of course, ask for the weather and how far is it from here to the mall and, when's my flight and all the Google stuff. It's there. But also there's this new element that's fundamental to the design. And it's part of the core experience to actually have a relationship and have fun with it. We're putting what we have done for years in the doodles into the core experience of the Google Assistant. So it's much more than just information seeking. It's also emotional. You can think of the way that we built the Google Assistant and the way that you can build personality into your technology as a pyramid. And this is the last diagram I'm going to give you today. But the idea starts at the base is editorial responses. So there's just infinite amount of things someone could ask your AI. Right? Can ask it, what's your favorite color? Do you eat ice cream? Things that I mentioned like that. But you can also ask, do you have any brothers or sisters? What do you do for fun? And you just have to, if you want to have a believable character, you need to answer those questions. And that's thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of questions that you need to be able to answer. That's what we consider the base of the pyramid. And then there's all these additional things like the curated content I talked about that are like jokes and fun facts and Easter eggs, cultural references, making people know you understand each other. And I don't know about you, but when I have friends, we share all kinds of things in common, like movies that we like and songs that we like. And just like that, we want to have a friendship with the Google Assistant. And the last thing we consider like the top of the pyramid are these games and features where you can play and enjoy yourself and have fun and build that relationship with those experiences. So like I mentioned, with the Google Assistant and with technology in general, our goal is to make people smile. And we want them to smile when they think of the Google Assistant. I want to thank you for your time. I hope that you smiled a little bit during this presentation, and I hope to see you again at GeekPark. Thanks a lot.
感谢 Ryan Germick 先生带来的